Hello everyone. So here we are in a forest again, but today it's pretty cold. And in today's video we're going to have a look at technique, and we're going to have a look at the angle of the tool when you're using gua sha, because the angle of the tool can change the strength of the treatment. And so it's not incredibly complicated, but it is something you just need to be sure of in order to do a proper treatment on someone. So let's have a look at the angle of the tools. So as ever, I'm going to get my tool from the forest. So just a moment. Okay, so here's the tool. It's nice and big. It's very sharp here, and I don't think I'm going to use that on my skin, but on my coat, to show you guys the angles, this is fine. So let's start off with perpendicular. Now perpendicular is just like that. So you're at 180 degrees from where the skin is. So from there we can either go in one direction or in the other direction. And what that does depends on which direction you're actually heading to when you're doing the gua sha, because gua sha is done in a certain direction, either going towards your hand or towards your shoulder. Depends on which part of your arm you're on. And this goes for your legs and your body and every part of you. There's a certain direction which is optimal. So for example, let's look at the arm here. So basically the yin channels, they're on the inside part of your arm. So what do I mean by the inside? So if I put my arm out like this whole part here is the inside of my arm. And then if I twist my arm like that, this part is the outside of my arm. So it's the dorsal side. So you can see the back of my hand there. So it's the back of my hand, the back of your arm there, the back of your upper arm. So basically, if it's muscular wise, that's going to be the triceps over here. But if you're doing the inside, it's much more the biceps. So if we take the dorsal side, so the back of the hand, and follow the back of the arm up to the shoulder there. So this is the yang channel area. So that just means there's a certain direction which you can go, which is optimal for the body, because this is how the body is structured. And that is to go from the fingers towards the shoulder, that direction. Why is this? Well, there's actually a continuous flow from the first channel, which is considered to be the lungs, all the way through each of the different channels, right the way up until the end, which will be the liver. So for example, the lung, it comes from the chest and it goes down the arm and comes to the tip of your thumb, and then it will switch to the large intestine, which then will connect to the next finger and then come back the other way, and then the large intestine here will then switch to the next one, which will be the stomach. If we're going to follow the direction of the channel, so we want to scrape this direction here, so that direction. So if you try it yourself, if you've got some tool, just put that on your arm and then bend it. So first of all, bend it so it's a 45-degree angle, but in that direction. So this is the direction we're going. So bend it in the direction you're going in, and then feel as it scrapes along the skin. And how does that feel? And then come back to perpendicular and then put it 45-degree angle away from the direction you're going in, and then scrape and then feel the difference. So you probably noticed that the one that is angled away from the direction you're going in digs into the skin, whereas the one that's angled towards the direction you're scraping in doesn't dig into the skin as much. So it can be pretty obvious which one of these is going to have a stronger effect when you're doing gua sha. So it's going to be that one, the one which is away from the direction of movement. So if I want to do a strong treatment, then I'm going to angle 45 degrees, or there's no particular rule, but let's just say 45 degrees, and then scrape. And then that will be quite a strong treatment and could quite easily bring sha to the surface, depending on where you're doing it. Whereas if I was going to do it the 45 degrees on the other angle, and then I scrape, that's going to be far gentler on the skin and might not even bring sha to the surface. Now, if I just put it perpendicularly and then I scrape, well, that's going to be somewhere in the middle. And this is basically the angles of scraping. If you want a strong treatment, and if the person can take a strong treatment, and if you want to bring out sha, then start perpendicularly, and you can then angle going away from the direction you're going in. Whereas if you want to do the opposite, if you don't want to have a very, very strong treatment, and perhaps you're doing it on someone who can't take a strong treatment, but your focus is much more on the circulation of blood and bringing the breath back to the tissue, then perpendicular and then come slightly the other way, depending, and then scrape. So it's a very simple idea about how the angle might affect how you treat. So if you're actually doing the face, then the angle that you're doing on will be a very similar idea. So the angle, I'm not going to put this on my face because I'm going to probably damage it in some way, and I don't really want to do that. So if you angle it, so let's suppose I'm coming from my nose along my cheekbone and kind of coming up there. So if I'm going to angle it that way, then it's going to kind of dig in, and that's going to be quite strong, and you might even mark the skin. Whereas if I'm going to angle it that way and I'm going to do it, it's much softer. So it's exactly the same idea when you're doing the face. So if you're doing a more kind of cosmetic treatment, or if you're doing a treatment for your health, it's exactly the same principle behind it about the angles of treatment. So there we are, that's the angle. So if you like this video, please click the like button, and also subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And please ask me anything, and you can write in the comments. And come and join me in the Facebook group, on Instagram. I've got a Facebook page as well. And come to the Institute. You'll see the links all down in the description.